On the evening she thought she was going to celebrate love and family, everything turned into a trap so cruel it almost broke her heart. Shola, a 70-year-old grandmother, arrived at her son David's home with nothing but love in her heart and a small gift she had knitted for her grandson Junior. She had spent weeks carefully weaving the sweater with her tired but steady hands, imagining his smile when he unwrapped it. But when the door opened, it wasn't her son who welcomed her. It was his wife, Amira. Her eyes were cold, her lips tight, and her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Where are you watching from today? Kindly hit like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more." Amira stood at the door, dressed in a shimmering green gown, her makeup flawless, her perfume heavy in the air. She looked Shola up and down, her perfectly manicured fingers gripping the doorframe as though she were blocking a stranger from entering. Shola smiled gently, clutching the small gift bag against her chest. "I brought something for Junior's birthday," she said softly. Amira's eyebrow arched in disdain. She stepped aside, not out of respect, but with the reluctant gesture of someone tolerating what they despised. Inside, Shola was greeted not with warmth, but with a room filled with wealthy strangers she had never met. The living room sparkled under a crystal chandelier, and men and women in fine suits and glittering jewelry whispered about business deals and private schools. These were Amira's guests, not her own family. Shola's heart sank when she realized this was not the intimate family dinner David had promised her, but a show of status for Amira's social circle. Then, through the noise, a familiar voice cried out with joy. "Grandma Shola!" Junior ran toward her, his little arms outstretched, carrying with him the only light in that cold room. Shola scooped Junior into her arms, his laughter warming her soul. "Happy birthday, my boy," she whispered, breathing in the scent of chocolate cake from his sticky fingers. For a moment, she forgot the icy stares around her. She wanted to give him the gift, to see his face glow with happiness. But before she could, Amira's hand came down like a storm, gripping Junior's shoulder. "Junior," Amira said, her tone icy, "remember what we discussed? Grandma must wash her hands before touching you. Now go play with the other children." The words cut through Shola's joy, leaving her standing frozen, her heart bruised but silent. The dinner that followed was worse. The long table stretched endlessly, dressed in white linen and glittering china. Shola was placed at the far end, beside an empty chair, almost forgotten. Conversations around her floated about vacation homes, million-dollar investments, and political connections. She had nothing to add to such talk, and no one cared to include her. At one point, David glanced at her and tried to smile, but Amira leaned close, whispered something, and he looked away. Shola's chest tightened. This was her son, the boy she had raised with sacrifices, who once defended her honor fiercely, now silent in his own house. Midway through the meal, Amira's voice rose above the chatter, sharp and deliberate. "So, Shola," she said loudly, "David tells me you're still working at that little company of yours." She dragged out the word little with a smirk, as though it were something shameful. Guests turned their heads, their eyes settling on Shola with curiosity and quiet judgment. Shola lifted her chin, refusing to be diminished. "Yes," she answered softly. "I own a business." The room went quiet for a heartbeat before Amira laughed, her voice like cold wine through dry leaves. "A business," she sneered. "She cleans offices. Very humble work." Murmurs filled the table, and Shola felt the weight of disdain pressing down on her. The woman beside Amira shifted uncomfortably, forcing a polite smile, but Shola caught the subtle movement of her body turning away. It was the same gesture she had seen many times in her life, the silent rejection that came when people thought you were beneath them. Shola tried to focus on her food, but each bite tasted like ashes. Her hands trembled slightly as she raised her fork. Around her, the conversations picked up again, now with an edge of mockery disguised as sophistication. They spoke of trips abroad, political dinners, and companies worth millions of dollars. None of them saw Shola as worthy to contribute. None of them saw her sacrifice, her history, or her dignity. Just when she thought she could endure no more, Junior climbed back onto her lap, his eyes full of innocence. "Grandma," he said eagerly, "please tell me the story about the princess who saved herself." It was their tradition, a tale Shola had made up years ago to teach him that strength and courage lived inside him, not outside. She smiled and opened her mouth to begin, but Amira's chair scraped back sharply. "Junior, get down at once." Amira snapped, her eyes blazing. "You'll stain your clothes. Go to your cousins." Junior whimpered, clinging tighter to his grandmother, but Amira yanked him away, her grip harsh. Shola's heart cracked at the sound of his little cry. Amira turned then, her anger no longer concealed. "I think it's time you leave," she said, her voice slicing through the room like a blade. The chatter stopped instantly. Every eye at the table fixed on Shola, some with pity, others with cruel delight at the unfolding drama. "Amira, please," Shola whispered, her voice trembling. "It's my grandson's birthday." Amira's lips curled into a cold smile. "Security," she called mockingly, though there was none nearby. "Please escort this woman out. She's disturbing our evening." Shola's cheeks burned with shame. Her body felt heavy as she rose, but her spirit told her to walk tall even in humiliation. She looked once at David, her last hope for defense. But her son stared at his plate, his silence louder than any rejection. The room remained frozen as she walked to the door, her gift for Junior still clutched tightly in her hand. When the night air touched her face, her tears finally came. At her car, she caught sight of herself in the mirror, a 70-year-old woman in her best dress, now made to feel like rags. Amira had called her a poor old woman, but tomorrow the truth would rise. Shola was not poor. Shola was not powerless. She was the founder and CEO of Sunwave Holdings, the very company where Amira worked. The drive home was quiet, the streets dim under the glow of scattered streetlights. Shola's hands no longer trembled. Instead, a calm determination filled her. Amira thought she had won, but she had no idea of the storm that would come. Shola had built Sunwave Holdings from nothing 37 years ago, at a time when few believed an African woman could run a successful company. Now it employed more than 2,500 people across 3 countries. At dawn the next morning, Shola arrived at headquarters earlier than ever, her heels clicking firmly against the polished marble floor. The security guard bowed his head respectfully. "Morning, Madam Shola. You are here before even the sun today." "Yes, Joseph," she replied softly. "I couldn't sleep." Her office sat high on the 40th floor, overlooking the city. The view was majestic, but her heart was not on the skyline. It was on the humiliation from the night before and the cruel words Amira had thrown at her. Sitting behind her mahogany desk, she powered on her computer and opened the employee database. There she found the name. Amira Johnson, Marketing Manager, Digital Strategy Division. Hired 19 months earlier, praised for her charm and modern thinking. Shola stared at the photograph, the same proud smile Amira had worn when she ordered her out of her grandson's birthday party. Scrolling deeper, Shola's eyes hardened. She uncovered troubling details. Complaints hidden in files, whispers of arrogance disguised as confidence. 3 different older employees had reported her for humiliation, mockery, and abuse. One, a woman named Rose, age 62, wrote that Amira had embarrassed her during a strategy meeting, calling her too old to understand social media. Another, a man named John, 59, said Amira made him work late nights on personal projects while mocking his slow brain. And a third, Blessing, 64, had been forced to night duty after Amira accused her of being unprofessional. Shola's chest burned with fury. This was no isolated behavior, it was a pattern. The phone rang, breaking her thoughts. It was David. "Mom!" His voice was strained, weary. "I'm sorry about last night." Amira was upset. She didn't mean what she said. Shola closed her eyes. Even now he made excuses. "David," she replied, her voice firm, "your wife called for security to throw me out in front of strangers. She made our Junior cry." Silence followed, heavy and guilty. "I should have spoken up," he admitted at last. "But you know how she gets. She wants everything perfect." Shola's lips pressed tight. Perfect, he said. Was her presence, the mother who raised him, now seen as imperfection in his world? By 9 a.m., the building pulsed with activity. Workers filled offices, phones rang, and screens flickered to life. Somewhere below, Amira likely strutted with her usual confidence, unaware of what was unfolding above her. Shola buzzed her assistant, Ifeoma, a loyal woman who had grown with the company for 17 years. "Ifeoma, I need personnel files." "Quietly. Start with the digital strategy division. I want every record, every review, every complaint." Ifeoma paused, sensing the weight in her boss's tone. "Of course, Madam Shola. Do you want to tell me why?" Shola's eyes narrowed at the city view. "Not yet," she replied. "But soon changes will be made. And lessons will be learned." An hour later, Ifeoma returned with a thick stack of folders. "Everything you asked for, Madam Shola." Shola flipped through the papers slowly, her heart growing heavier with each page. The truth was clearer now. Amira's division had the highest turnover rate in the entire company. Older employees in particular had either resigned quietly or been forced aside. Exit interviews revealed words like hostile, arrogant, and ageist. Shola found printed emails attached to reports. In one, Amira wrote to a colleague, "Why waste time with these dinosaurs? They are blocking progress. We need fresh blood, not fossils." Shola's jaw tightened. Amira's cruelty was not only personal, it was professional poison spreading through Sunwave Holdings. Shola leaned back in her chair, memories flashing. She remembered her early days, carrying files between offices, facing laughter from men who told her women had no place in boardrooms. She remembered the long nights, the empty stomachs, and the ridicule. Yet she had built something lasting, something honorable. And here was Amira, tearing down the very values that had made Sunwave Holdings strong. Shola pressed a button on her desk phone. "Send Jennifer from Human Resources to my office immediately," she instructed. Her tone was calm but edged with steel. She would not allow her life's work to rot from within. Not while she still had breath in her body. Jennifer arrived nervously, clutching a file. "Madam Shola, you wanted to see me?" Shola gestured for her to sit. "Yes. Tell me why these complaints against Amira never reached my desk." Jennifer's eyes darted nervously. Some supervisors believed Amira was simply setting high standards. They felt escalating the issues might appear as resistance to change. Shola's voice dropped, steady but cold. 3 formal complaints in 19 months, all by older staff, dismissed without thought. That is not high standards, Jennifer. That is abuse. Jennifer swallowed hard. You're right, madam. I should have pushed harder. Shola leaned forward, her eyes sharp. What I want now is simple. Amira Johnson is to be transferred immediately. Jennifer's eyebrows shot up. Transferred. To where? Shola thought of Rose, John, and Blessing, the workers Amira had humiliated and mocked. She thought of the dignity of labor and the way Amira had dismissed it as worthless. Her voice was firm when she spoke. Food services. The dishwashing unit. Effective today. Jennifer gasped. Madam, that's a major demotion. She'll file a grievance. Shola's lips curved into a thin smile without warmth. Let her. Tell her it is part of a new initiative. Management personnel must understand every level of company operations. If she refuses, then she is welcome to seek employment elsewhere. Sunwave Holdings has no space for bullies. After Jennifer left, Shola stood by her wide glass window, watching the bustling city below. Cars crawled like ants, pedestrians hurried along, each person fighting through their own struggles. Power, she realized, wasn't about chandeliers, titles, or the kind of gowns Amira wore. True power came from shaping the lives of people with fairness and dignity. Tomorrow, Amira would report not to her fancy office, but to the basement cafeteria. She would wear an apron and gloves. She would scrub plates and stand shoulder to shoulder with the very workers she despised. For the first time, Amira would taste humility, and she would not know whose hands had served it to her. The cafeteria of Sunwave Holdings was alive with the clatter of trays, the hiss of steam, and the rhythm of dishes sliding into sinks. It was not glamorous, but it was honest work, the kind that kept the company alive though many never noticed. On her first day in food services, Amira arrived wearing a forced smile, hoping it was some misunderstanding. But when the supervisor handed her a plastic apron and gloves, her expression fell. "Start with the dish pit," the woman said firmly. Amira's manicured nails, once symbols of elegance, chipped as she gripped the industrial spray hose. The heat, the smell, and the endless pile of plates broke her pride with every passing hour. By the second day, Amira's complaints had begun. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to her co-worker, a woman named Maria, age 56, who had spent years in the kitchen. "I have a degree. I've managed million-dollar campaigns. I don't belong here." Maria's eyes narrowed as she scrubbed a pot. "You think this work makes us less than you?" Amira stammered. "That's not what I meant." But her words sounded hollow. Across the station, Blessing, the 64-year-old cleaner Amira once forced into night duty, wiped her hands on a towel and said gently, "There's dignity in any honest work, young lady. What matters is the heart you bring to it." Still, Amira rolled her eyes when no one was looking. She saw herself as punished, not corrected. Even when she bent over sinks, the arrogance clung to her like perfume. On the third day, Shola herself entered the cafeteria quietly, wearing a maintenance uniform and cap that disguised her silver hair. She walked past unnoticed, clipboard in hand, watching closely. Amira wrestled with greasy trays, muttering angrily to a young man named Daniel, a 25-year-old helper. "This is beneath me," she hissed. Daniel frowned. "We all work hard here, and we all matter." But Amira only scoffed, her bitterness sharper than the spray nozzle she held. That evening, Shola's phone buzzed. It was David. His voice carried worry. "Mom, Amira's having a hard time. Some restructuring at work. She's exhausted and angry." Shola listened silently as her son continued. "She asked me to call. She wants to apologize for her behavior at Junior's birthday." Shola almost laughed, not from joy but from disbelief. Amira didn't want to apologize, she wanted an escape. "Tell her I'm not ready for that conversation," Shola replied calmly. David sighed. "Please, Mom. She's stressed." Shola's voice was firm. "She's not stressed, David. She's learning what it means to face consequences. Something she has avoided her entire life." On the fourth day, Shola returned in disguise, moving closer to Amira's station. She mopped the floor near her feet, careful to stay unnoticed. Amira, tired and bitter, whispered to Daniel, "This isn't temporary. Someone is targeting me. Probably that useless HR woman." She looked around with disgust. "These people don't belong in a real company. They're here because they couldn't make it anywhere else." Shola's grip tightened on the mop. Her heart ached, not just for herself, but for every worker Amira dismissed. Even in humiliation, Amira had learned nothing. Her words revealed her heart, proud, cruel, and blind to the truth staring her in the face. By the end of her first week, Amira's bitterness spread like smoke. She mocked Maria's accent, laughed at Blessing's age, and whispered to Daniel that the kitchen workers were maintenance people, not equals. Shola heard every word, standing nearby in disguise. Her heart ached. Here was the truth. Humiliation had not changed Amira. It had only hardened her pride. That evening, Shola sat in her quiet apartment, staring at the sweater she'd knitted for Junior. It remained unopened in its bag. Tomorrow, she decided, there would be no disguises. Tomorrow, Amira would face the truth about the woman she had insulted. The reckoning was near, and Shola's spirit was unshakable. Friday morning arrived with the weight of justice. Shola's heels clicked against the marble as she entered Sunwave Holdings in her true form. Dignified, confident and powerful. She instructed Ifeoma to arrange a meeting. 10 o'clock. Amira Johnson. In my office. And make sure she comes through the main executive elevator. At the appointed time, Amira appeared. Her once bright eyes dull from exhaustion. She wore simple clothes now, the marks of dishwater on her hands. There must be some mistake, she muttered. But when Shola turned her chair slowly to face her, Amira's mouth fell open. You? She whispered in shock. Yes, Shola replied calmly. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Amira's face cycled from disbelief to anger. This is some kind of joke. You can't be the CEO of Sunwave Holdings. Shola leaned forward. I've been the founder and CEO for 37 years. The same company that signed your paychecks is the one you thought belonged only to people like you. You dismissed me as poor, but it was my hand that built this place. Amira's composure cracked. If I had known. Exactly, Shola interrupted. You only respect those you think are above you. You humiliate those you believe are beneath you. That is who you are, Amira. The truth struck like thunder, leaving Amira speechless. Shola opened the files on her desk. Do you remember Rose, John, and Blessing? They filed complaints against you. You mocked their age, called them fossils, pushed them aside. You told Daniel in the cafeteria that workers there are worthless. Did you think no one would hear? Amira's lips trembled. I was under stress. People misunderstand me. Shola's eyes narrowed. Stress does not turn kindness into cruelty. It only reveals what already exists. And what I've seen in you is arrogance, pride, and contempt for the people who keep this company alive. Amira dropped her gaze, but not in shame, only in fear of consequences she could not escape. You have a choice, Shola said firmly. You can remain in the cafeteria, continue learning humility, and maybe change your character. Or you can resign today, and I will provide a neutral reference for your future. But understand this, there is no path back to leadership here. Sunwave Holdings cannot be built on cruelty. Amira's eyes flashed. This is personal revenge. You're punishing me because I embarrassed you at dinner. Shola's voice was steady. No, Amira. I'm holding you accountable. You treated others the same way you treated me. Actions have consequences. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by Amira's shallow breathing. When Amira finally spoke, her words dripped with defiance. Then I'll stay in the kitchen. Marcus will see this for what it is. Your petty revenge. He'll choose me over you. Shola's lips tightened, but her voice remained calm. So be it. Report to the cafeteria on Monday morning. And remember, it is your actions, not my decisions, that put you there. Amira stormed out, slamming the door. Shola sat back, feeling the years of weariness press against her shoulders. She had hoped Amira would see the truth, perhaps even change. But arrogance runs deep when it is fed by pride. Still, Shola knew this battle was not yet finished. 2 weeks later, David called. His voice was tense. Mom, Amira told me everything. She said you're punishing her because of personal grudges. You made her wash dishes to humiliate her. Shola sighed. David, has she told you about the complaints against her? About the way she treated older staff? About the names she called me? There was silence on the line. Finally she said, come to my apartment tonight. Both of you. We will speak openly. That evening David and Amira arrived. Shola laid the files on the table, evidence clear as daylight. This is not revenge, she told her son. This is truth. David's eyes scanned the reports. He read Rose's humiliation, John's forced overtime, Blessing's night shift transfer. His face grew pale. Amira, he whispered. Is this true? Amira stammered, her voice shaking. They're exaggerating. I was only trying to raise standards. David's voice rose, anger breaking through. Standards. You called my mother a poor woman in front of our son. You threw her out of our house. You bullied people who gave their lives to this company. That's not standards, that's cruelty. Amira reached for his hand, but he pulled away, tears forming in his eyes. The mask she had worn for years was finally breaking apart. Shola watched quietly, her heart heavy. David stood trembling, his voice low but fierce. I cannot stay married to someone who treats my mother and others this way. Pack your things, Amira. We'll speak about custody through lawyers. Amira's face twisted with rage. This is what you wanted, she screamed at Shola. But Shola's eyes remained steady. No, Amira. I wanted you to change. But you chose arrogance over humility. You destroyed yourself. Amira stormed out, leaving behind a trail of anger that could no longer touch them. In that silence, David collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. I'm sorry, Mom. For everything. Shola placed a gentle hand on her son's shoulder. You are my child. There is nothing to forgive. What matters now is the future. Months later, Shola sat in a sunny park, watching Junior build castles in the sand. His laughter filled the air, free and innocent. David sat beside her, lighter now, a man rediscovering peace. Sunwave Holdings thrived, stronger with its new culture of respect and dignity. Workers old and young felt valued. As Shola smiled at her grandson's castle, she knew the lesson was complete. True power is not wealth or titles. True power is dignity, kindness, and the courage to stand for what is right, no matter the cost.